Is lithium going to be the new oil of the 21st century? We're here to discuss this with Alex Langer, president of Lift Power, a company focused on lithium mining. Welcome to the show, Alex. Good to host you today.
Thank you so much, David. Happy to be here.
Your company is listed on the CSE as Lift, L-I-F-T. We'll be talking about your projects. But first, let's talk about your outlook and your overview of the lithium market. For somebody who is watching this right now and may not understand the importance of lithium, sum it up in a few minutes or less. Why do we need, as a society, why do we need lithium?
Yeah, it's been a really big change recently, and it's been led originally by governments focusing on reducing greenhouse gases, the use of fossil fuels, but it's also been a massive uptake of just personal use. People driving EV batteries, realizing the environmental benefit, but also cost savings of being able to charge your car at home and driving around. I know both of us are located in Vancouver, so we see Teslas and all these other new models, BMW, Mercedes, some really nice cars that are starting to come online. So it was really originally focused with governments pushing this mandate, but now it's really being adopted by individuals and peoples. Because of that, we're seeing a really large increase now. According to Albemarle, one of the largest lithium producers in the world, we're expecting a 5x lithium growth demand by 2030. That's only 6 years away. So to see this market increase that much, it really hasn't happened in any other sector in our history.
5x increase in lithium demand, primarily from which industry? The auto industry?
It's auto industry to start, but it's going to continue. So the auto industry is definitely going to make out that 5 times demand over the next few years. But from there, we're going to see a really large uptake in storage, battery storage at home or within office buildings and things like that. It's all about controlling your own energy use. If you're able to store electricity at your own home, whether it's solar panels, whether it's other power generation functions you might have, you'd be able to sell that energy back to the grid at your own use. So again, it's not just going to be EV batteries that's going to be used, it's going to be battery storage.
And the 5 times increase in demand, how is that going to be met? Is there enough supply in the world?
Definitely not. And that's what we're seeing right now. So there's been so much M&A in this sector. A lot of the big players are starting to realize that we're just not going to have that much material available. Some of the auto manufacturers are delaying their release of the models just because the lithium's not there. So what we're seeing now is this really large demand for very huge, large-scale projects that can fill this demand. Some of these smaller projects just aren't going to work because they're just not large enough scale. So we're seeing a really big shift in thinking of big, large projects are going to be at scale, which will be able to meet the demand moving forward.
Currently, right now, where in the world is most of the lithium mined?
Yeah, most of it comes from Australia, and it comes from hard rock mining. So that's spodumene, very traditional mining, something you would grind it down, and then you would concentrate it, and then you would ship it. You'd ship it into a processing center, like a refinery, and then you would get a hydroxide lithium product or a lithium carbonate product, which would then be used into batteries. So the majority comes from Australia, but previous to Australia, the majority came from Argentina and Chile through lithium brine projects. So lithium brine projects take a long time to come online. They are quite a few of them, but most of those projects are now in development. So the world is really focusing its attention to Canada and specifically spodumene projects. What's great about spodumene is the process is relatively straightforward. They can be large in scale, and they can get up and running quite a bit quicker than lithium brine projects.
And in North America, what's the this leads into your company, which we'll talk about later, but in North America, what is the mining and extraction of lithium like right now, the situation?
Yeah, it's extraordinarily limited. Some is coming. There's a little bit in the US. There's one small brine project, but it's very, very small. We do have a little bit of production now starting in Quebec, which is great. These projects have been in the works for upwards of 20 years and are starting finally to produce material. So there is a little bit of uptake. What you are also seeing is the US government. They've announced a $2 trillion package of financing for battery metals and for critical elements. A lot of that money will be focused on lithium, and not just within the US, but also in Canada, sort of secure supplies. So it's, again, government focused that's really kind of pushing this mandate. We're seeing auto manufacturers in the US, one in particular GM, and that's a $500 million package with Lithium Americas for a clay project in the US. So the money's definitely there, and there's a lot of focus on that.
So the Clean Energy Initiative is $2 trillion. The Department of Energy is awarding $2.8 billion from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill or law to boost domestic manufacturing of battery metals. This was from 2022. And I'll just read you a bit of the press release from the White House dated 2022. So a new effort to mobilize the entire government in securing a reliable and sustainable supply of critical minerals used for power, electricity, and electric vehicles. Together, these actions will improve America's energy independence, strengthen national security, support good-paying jobs across battery supply chains, and lower costs for working families. Why is it a matter of national security that we have battery metals mined within North America?
The biggest one is it's currently the whole market is really controlled by China. The majority of all processing, battery manufacturing is based in China. Cobalt, lithium, you name it. A lot of the important metals for batteries procurement is coming from China. So it makes a lot of sense that the U.S., in terms of a critical supply, would like to have their own control of batteries moving forward.
This money, do you know what exactly it's going to be used for? The $2.8 billion, is it going to be on exploration? Is it going to be on production of existing mines? Like, do you have an idea of what the government wants to do with this
they
money?
haven't said exactly, but I know that money takes a while once the government announces, these packages to actually deploy that capital. But again, in my opinion, it's really going to be for those large scale projects, things that will really move the needle moving forward. And you have to get your project to a certain place to be able to usually apply for some of these credits. You need to be kind of past resource stage, probably into feasibility mode, if not a bit further, to access this capital. And that's one thing we are doing at Lift, is we're being very aggressive in pushing our project forward. Reason being for the opportunity that's in front of us.
Well, what should be the priority with North America? Is it discovery, or is it ramping up production of existing mines?
Yeah, again, the existing mines are minuscule. There's really not much out there, and it's going to take them a while to get up and running. So I think the focus should be on finding these large projects and, again, accelerating them. So governments, how they could really help is to help simply with the permitting process, just making sure there's timelines in place rather than things getting stagnated. I think that would be a huge benefit for a lot of the miners and for a secure supply of lithium moving forward.
Let's just comment on the price real quick. The price of lithium skyrocketed post 2021, tripled in between the start of 2022 to late 2022. It's now come back down to not quite pre-pandemic levels, but about 60-70% lower than the highs. What happened?
Yeah, that's a good question. So obviously it ran a little bit quickly there. I know previously I was with a company called Millennial Lithium. We had a brine project in Argentina that we sold to Lithium Americas for just under $500 million about a year and a half ago. So during that time, I saw a lot of jump in prices in terms of lithium and demand coming and going. I remember when we started that project, lithium carbonate prices were, maybe around $8,000, and now we're well over $20,000. So it's still a huge jump up from where we were 6 years ago. It did run up even higher. I think the market honestly just got ahead of itself, but $20,000 lithium price, it is incredible. It really gives these large scale projects an opportunity to be successful, jump off the ground. So even if you have a shorter term view on the price of lithium, I think anything around these numbers are really truly quite high.
So you're saying current price levels are sufficient for exploration activity to continue, specifically for your company?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, what's really helpful is to, if you follow gold, is kind of convert it into a gold number. So at least for us, 20,000 per ton LCE number, if you want to do an equivalent in terms of value, it would be about 8 grams per ton gold at 1% lithium. So anything above 1% lithium, you're looking at kind of 8 grams material, which is huge. And a lot of these projects are open pit. So the economics are just sky high at this point right now.
Let's talk about Lift now. You've got a few projects all in Canada. First of all, why Canada? Why not also in the US?
Yeah, I think Canada is kind of being underexplored. Also, geological imprint makes a lot of sense. It's very similar to what you would find in Western Australia and some of the largest mines in the world. That's where we're seeing some incredible discoveries right now in Quebec and Ontario, some very large projects. So our project in particular, our flagship is the Yellowknife Lithium project. It's located about 40 kilometers away from the city of Yellowknife. And what's really interesting about this project is that it's all outcropping. What does that mean? Is we have 13 spodumene dikes, which is the lithium-bearing material, which are visible from space. So absolutely huge. Now, this project in particular was kind of held dormant for about 40 years. It was actually discovered in the 1950s, which is neat. So I think to answer your question, it's really the large scalability of these projects in Canada.
So let's talk about the Yellowknife project. Give us a sense of the scale in more detail. Give us a sense of the history of the project and where you are in terms of your development.
Perfect. Yeah. So as I mentioned, it's 13 spodumene dikes that are at surface. Again, you can see this from space. What that means is about 10 kilometers of material at surface at strike length. So in terms of exploration, in essence, what we're doing is we're just drilling underneath these dikes. You kind of set up your drill rig, a few meters away and drill into it and just keep on stepping out and moving forward. So our plan is we're doing a very large drill campaign. I think currently we're at about 32,000 meters, which is one of the largest drill campaigns in Canada, probably top 5 in the world in terms of lithium exploration. We still have 2 drill rigs turning, even though we are quite up north in the Arctic, which is great. We drilled well over 200 drill holes and we've announced about 60 of them. This is kind of our phase 1 of our drilling program. We will be doing a much larger drill program as well, starting in January, to come out with an NI 43-101 inferred resource report by kind of the middle of next year. So we'll be drilling again. We'll have anywhere between 6 and 9 drill rigs starting in January, and we'll have news flow kind of all the way until the resource report comes out. Now, a little bit of the history of the project, which is quite neat. So what had happened, again, these are visible from space. So in the 1950s, the US government was looking for lithium because you need lithium for nuclear bomb procurement. And so they kind of scoured the whole world and they decided on lithium in the Northwest Territories in Yellowknife. They flew over this project and boom, you see them there. That's kind of your discovery. So in the 1970s, lithium kind of had a bit of an uptick again. And it was a company called Canadian Superior that had these projects. They did a bunch of work, a bunch of drilling, a bunch of sampling at surface. They did bulk samples. And what they came up with is, in their opinion, this had the potential to be one of the largest lithium resources in the Western world. Now, Canadian Superior was eventually acquired by ExxonMobil. And of course, ExxonMobil, we all know, is focused on oil and gas. So they dropped all their mineral licenses and mineral work. From there, it was picked up by, I guess, a group of people, and they held it privately. They liked the projects. They understood the potential within the projects, and they just kind of held on to it. They had been courted by a number of different groups to push these projects forward, but they were looking, for, I guess, the right group to push it forward and also the right time. Now, in terms of lithium, this is definitely the right time. And fortunately enough, this group felt that we were the right people to push the project forward. So a lot of history there, which is quite neat. And we're very delighted to be able to push this project hopefully through resource, feasibility, and eventual production if all goes well.
So your goal is eventual production, not buyout? Why is that?
Well, that's a good question. I think at this point, our team is made up of people that could push it forward through feasibility, and then you'd be looking at other people to push it into production. I really truly feel this project has the potential to get into production because it is so large. If all goes well, we're expecting this to be one of the largest lithium deposits in North America, especially for spodumene. If you look at the grades around the world and the size and scale, it could be top 10 in the world as well. I would think that'd be quite interesting. We've seen a lot of M&A in the sector. One in particular was Azure Metals. They had an offer from SQM, which is one of the largest producers of lithium in the world. It was at $900 million for a project that's actually pre-resource. They said no, and sure enough, last week, this is very recent, SQM came back and offered 1.6 billion. And with that number, the founders and the shareholders of Azure are pushing that forward with a positive response.
I'm just curious, given the history of that specific area, the geography in particular, why is it that deposits haven't been found and extracted already, given its long history?
So it's amazing. Like, it truly is, and it's so close to infrastructure, which is huge. It's one thing we also have to keep in mind is the importance of infrastructure for these projects. We're located, as close as 40 kilometers from the city of Yellowknife. There is an amazing all-weather two-lane paved highway heading up to the diamond mines in Northwest Territories. We're very close to power. You have infrastructure there. There's a railhead just across Great Slave Lake at the top of the Northwest Territories. So we have an opportunity to, or somebody has an opportunity to have a really well located project that's very close to railway that could then be processed. The reason why was just this individual or this group of individuals was quiet. They liked the projects. They had focused on other industries in their life and made a lot of money, and got a little bit older and thought now is the time to make sure these projects get pushed forward.
Do you have an estimate in terms of the timeline of when the pre-feasibility study will materialize into actual deposits found?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started that work aggressively already. Environmental baseline studies have started. It's a very, very big budget. We have our exploration agreement already in place with the Indigenous group that lives, very close to the project. So that's really important when you're looking at these projects to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and you're constantly de-risking the projects. So step one, as I mentioned, is going to be that resource report, and we're hoping that kind of in the middle of next year. And if all goes well, I think the pre-feasibility study, whatever you want to call it, would be out within months after that, just because we're doing all the detailed work as we speak.
How would you address criticism from environmental groups that lithium extraction is dirty, potential for contamination of the water, the land? Well, that's one of the arguments against driving an electric car, because even though your electricity may be coming from hydro and other sustainable sources, but the battery metal itself is extracted from a non-clean method. How would you respond to that?
Sure. it's a funny claim. So lithium itself is a very clean metal. It's sitting in the ground, so there's no real risk when you're also extracting it. Again, it's very similar to a quarry type of process. So no real huge environmental risk. You're using, flotation. You're using a bit of gravity separation. So in that regards, it's not much. And what's happened in Canada and the rest of the world, well, mainly in Canada and the Western world, is environmental standards are incredible. Like if you do things properly, you're meeting all your environmental goals, you're consulting with local communities. The world needs this. If we really want to move to a green economy, lithium is going to be a huge part of that. So as long as everything is done properly and everything is gauged properly, that's what's going to, benefit the world. We're not dealing in China where there's a bit of a black hole, or projects in Africa extracting metals. This is Canada. It's an amazing first world country that has incredible environmental standards, and we're happy to have them. It's really important.
Looking ahead now, what are your primary objectives going forward for the next 24 to 48 months when it comes to adding shareholder value?
Yeah, I think right away, and we started to see it, is our drill results. These are world-class. If you look at some of the top drill results in the world for any commodity, we're constantly in top 5, top 10 weekly. So we've been issuing news releases every week for the last couple of weeks, and we're going to continue for a very, very long time. So I think number one is those grades, and they're coming in strong week after week, and large and thick, and some of the best in the world. And that's all going to be kind of incorporated into the NI 43-101 resource report, which is due in about 6 to 9 months. Which is going to be a massive catalyst. At the same time, we will be doing bulk samples, so there's going to be quite a bit of news on that. That's also quite important. You want to make sure that metallurgically the lithium can be extracted. It had been done, in the 70s, so we think that process should be relatively similar. But now there's modern methods, so it might even be better. So that's going to be a big catalyst, and then of course the feasibility study, in about a year's time, will come out from there. But beyond that, further agreements with groups, kind of pushing things forward.
I'm just looking at your balance sheet here. Between November 30th, 2022 and August 31st, 2023, your balance sheet expanded dramatically, both assets and liability sides. So total assets increased from 15 million to 249 million. Liabilities 15 million to liabilities 4 million to 10 million. Cash expanded dramatically, 5 million to 17 million. What happened there?
Yeah, so it was really the big acquisition of the lithium pegmatite project. So right away, that in essence doubled, our current holdings and the value from the company. And then we also did 2 large raises. We raised about $50 million last year. What's great about being in Canada and being able to use a charity flow through, so our dilution has been extraordinarily minimal. Currently, we only have 39 million shares outstanding. For a company of our stage is kind of unheard of. And on the back of that, we raised $50 million, and we're spending it pretty aggressively. Drilling up north, it is expensive, but for us, we really feel it's a bit of a race. Lithium is quite a bit in the world, but for these large scale projects, you want to be moving forward and you want to be moving aggressively. Fortunately for us, we have some amazing shareholders as well as institutional shareholders, and they've all kind of be on board of getting us to accelerate our programs and pushing it as quickly as possible. So you've seen a lot of value created really through exploration and through capital raising, being able to use these charity flow throughs to minimize dilution.
Can you comment on some of these largest shareholders?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of have a big group from around the world. In Europe, we have a Commodity Capital, which is one of the largest lithium funds, top performing funds in the world. In Canada, we have a number of shareholders as well. In the US, Extract Capital. We have For Sale out of Brazil. We have Amaldi out of London. So really kind of a world group of shareholders that see the possibility of a world-class deposit here.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Alex, very much for your time today. Where can we learn more about Lift Power?
Yeah, just on our website. It's nice and easy. As well, you did mention earlier, we do trade on the CSE, but as of Wednesday, we'll be upgrading the TSX Venture. We feel this is going to allow us a bit more liquidity. Also, as a company evolves, it's good to have a few more eyes, especially internationally. We're getting more and more interest. We're currently having a roadshow in Australia as well. So that's been quite positive. So it's amazing to see, groups again from all over the world looking at Lift. So our website is by far the best way to get more information.
Well, congratulations on your success in your merger and your expansion. And here's to many more successes down the line. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow Alex at the links down below.